Hello and welcome to the Commander's Quarters, your Magic the Gathering source that helps you command your budget. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. We also have a ton of brand new t-shirt designs in stock, so make sure you check out those as well. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG Player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all of their support. Hey everyone, Mitch coming in from the Commander's Quarters studio. Welcome to the show. So, spoiler season, day 4, Shout of Mortality, 15 mana card. What in the world? Yeah, this is a crazy day already. My goodness, if you want to see what that card does and what decks really want it, make sure you check that episode out. Also, you could check out my episode on Angel of Anguish and find out why I'm saying, okay, terrible villain impression. Regardless, yeah, make sure you check that episode out at some point, and not before you see this episode, though, because this episode is on Tivit. My apologies if I'm mispronouncing that. I just misspoke there again. Goodness gracious, Tivit, Seller of Secrets, because this commander is really spicy, and I did not think that this kind of a commander could ever exist. And of course, with all the mistakes that I've already made, and I'm sure all the mistakes that I will make in this episode, make sure you blame Eddie in the comments below, because remember, it is always Eddie's fault. It is never my fault. It has never been my fault. It's always Eddie, okay? And now with that said, let's jump into it. So, we actually see Tivit on the back of one of the Commander precons, and the image is quite small. So, yeah, I decided instead of, just showing this image and trying to talk about it from here, I made a custom card version of it, and oh my goodness, okay, looking at this, I've already made a mistake. Anyways, we're sticking with it. Let's keep rolling. Blame Eddie in the comments below. Regardless, a big thank you to MTG.design, a fantastic custom card making website. And yeah, it's not their fault that this card is missing some text. It is my fault, but I'll just say it, okay? Tivit, Seller of Secrets, is a 4/4 Sphinx Rogue with Flying and Ward 3. There you go, that was the text that's missing. My apologies. Anyways, that costs 3 white, blue, black. Now, outside of Flying and Ward 3, which you cannot see on the card, what you can see on the card is the exciting part. Council's Dilemma. Whenever Tivit, Seller of Secrets, enters the battlefield or deals combat damage to a player, starting with you, each player votes for evidence or bribery. For each evidence vote, investigate. For each bribery vote, create a treasure token. While voting, you may vote an additional time, and of course those votes can be for different choices or the same choice. So, first off, yeah, a 4/4 flyer for 6 mana, not all that great, but the fact that it has Ward 3 is fantastic, because obviously this can protect our commander and make it a lot more difficult for our opponents to target it, because if they do want to target it, they've got to pay an extra 3 to do so. Regardless, I never expected to see a commander that has Council's Dilemma on it. I did not think voting was going to be coming back in on a commander in such a big and splashy way, and yeah, I think a lot of players out there are going to be very excited about this one. Now, keep in mind that that trigger happens on both ETB and on combat damage, and of course there are plenty of ways in this color combination to use and abuse that trigger, so we can make a lot of, well, I mean, depending on how people vote, either clues or treasure tokens. And obviously, we get to pick 2 of those things because we get to vote an additional time, which is just absolutely lovely, so we're probably going to take 2 treasures the vast majority of the time. Now, yes, there will be times that we do take clues and investigate, but most of the time we're probably going to want that additional free mana. And yeah, our opponents might know that as well and might vote for investigate the vast majority of the time as well, but still there are plenty of ways that we can utilize those clues they're going to give us, and if they happen to vote, for us to get treasure, great, extra free mana for us as well. But yeah, from just one Council's Dilemma trigger, again on ETB or on combat damage, assuming that we have all 3 of our opponents still in play or playing, that is 5 total permanents we are getting each and every single time. Now, obviously, it could be 2 treasures, 3 clues, 3 treasures, 2 clues, 4 to 1, whatever it's going to be. we've got a lot of potential mana and a lot of potential card draw from this commander. And of course, you can utilize this commander in a political way, wheeling and dealing with opponents, being like, hey, if you vote this way, I'll do this for you. You know, give me an extra treasure, and I can cast this spell then that's going to help all of us out. That kind of play. And of course, there are just other ways to, well, get exactly what we want. Now, really quick, before we jump into the cards that work well with this commander, I have included all these cards in a nice little list in the description below, because many of you out there have been asking for a list of the cards when I talk about these commanders, because, well, when commanders are spoiled and, you know, people get excited about the commanders, sometimes card prices go up for cards that work very well with those commanders. So be on the lookout for those cards, and yeah, there's a link in the description below. And the first cards that I want to mention are ones that actually deal with voting, with cards like Illusion of Choice, Ballot Broker, and Brago's Representative. Illusion of Choice says you choose how each player votes this turn, and it's an instant for just a single blue, and on top of that it draws you a card. Yeah, this card is pretty fantastic in this deck. Again, it's basically just a cantrip for 1 mana, which is already just nice, so it replaces itself. And yeah, just basically like, hey, instead of your opponents actually being able to choose how they vote at all this turn, you get to choose, and obviously the more and more Council's Dilemma triggers that you get from your commander, whether again that's ETB or on combat damage, the more value you get out of this, because you're just going to keep picking, well, most likely treasure, 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 and just get all the treasures. Yeah, you can have a really explosive and even broken turn with this, and we'll talk about that here in a bit regardless. Next up, we've got Ballot Broker and Brago's Representative, which each basically do the exact same thing. While voting, you get an additional vote. So these are kind of like extra copies of your commander released for that last part, and yeah, getting an extra vote is again just extra value every single time you get your commander's trigger. So while your opponents each get 1 vote, with one of these in play with your commander, you essentially get 3 votes. So maybe they give you 3 clues, but you get 3 treasures, and yeah, there's a lot of powerful things that you can do with that. And also, having more votes or being able to sign all the votes can also help with cards like Council's Judgment, Plea for Power, and Expropriate. Council's Judgment says, well, the Council starting with you, each player votes for a non-land permanent you don't control. Exile each permanent with the most votes or tied for the most votes. So by having more votes, obviously, or, you know, be able to control the votes, you can try to tip the scales to pick what exactly you want to pick. And again, if you can get things to be tied, great. Next up, there's Plea for Power, which says, well, the Council starting with you, each player votes for time or knowledge. If time gets more votes, take an extra turn for this one. If knowledge gets more votes, their vote is tied. Draw 3 cards. So this one actually gets more and more powerful, again, with the more votes that you have, or again, being able to control the votes. And actually, again, when it just comes to a one-on-one scenario at the very end of the game, this is just an extra turn spell because, well, your opponent very well might want you to not get that extra turn by voting for knowledge. You get 2 votes, so you're going to vote time for both of them. Speaking of which, my goodness, Expropriate. Yeah, okay, this card's already just a bustedly good card. Bustedly good, is that a phrase? I don't know. Anyways, it's an incredibly good card, and yeah, with this commander, it gets even better. It says Council's Dilemma, starting with you, each player votes for time or money. For each time vote, take an extra of this one. For each money vote, choose a permanent owned by the voter and gain control of it. Exile, Expropriate. So, again, if you can control votes, great. I mean, you get, what, 5 extra turns because of that? But even if you can't control votes, so again, if you just have your commander in play with this, you get an additional vote. So yeah, you get 2 extra turns and steal 3 permanents. Have fun winning the game from there. And of course, there are other Will the Council and Council's Dilemma cards to consider for this kind of a deck. And yeah, you can go really heavy into that kind of play if you really want to. But you can also focus on using and abusing your commander's own Council's Dilemma trigger with things like Ephemerate, Conjurer's Closet, and Teleportation Circle. Ephemerate says, exile target creature you control, then return to the battlefield under its owner's control, and it has Rebound, so you get to do it again next turn. Again, blinking our commander is an easy way to abuse that ETB and to get a ton of permanents again, either clues or treasures, but probably a combination of both. So this can even just pay for itself essentially, because at the very least, you know, again, if you choose for those treasures, you're getting 2 of them, so you're just netting mana by casting this essentially. And of course, there are repeatable blink effects like Conjurer's Closet or Teleportation Circle, which basically do the exact same thing for this deck's purposes. At the beginning of your end step, you can exile your commander and bring it back under your control. So yeah, use and abuse that ETB again and again and again. So you can just stockpile a ton of clues and a ton of treasures, and yeah, utilize them when you need to. Also, keep in mind again, and I probably should have mentioned this earlier, but yeah, cards like Ephemerate can be fantastic for this commander because your opponent's already going to have a hard time targeting it because again, it's that Ward 3, so when they do choose to do that, you're like, I'm just going to blink my commander and it's going to be safe, and too bad. So when your opponents see that you do have blink cards with this commander, they're going to be very wary on trying to ever target it, because it's just going to be a waste of a spell sometimes. And speaking of blinking, of course I have to bring up Deadeye Navigator, and sure, Eldrazi Displacer too, but yeah, Deadeye Navigator mainly. It has Soul Bond. When it's paired with another creature either of those creatures has, pay 1 and a blue, exile this creature, return to the battlefield under your control. This just goes infinite with your commander very, very, very easily, because again, you get 2 votes, and you can pick 2 treasures, so because of that, you get 2 free mana essentially every single time your commander comes into play. Now your opponents, if you've got Deadeye Navigator in play, should never give you another treasure, because, well, that's just infinite mana if they keep doing that. But yeah, they're going to give you just an infinite number of clues, essentially, because you can just keep blinking your commander again and again and again and again and again. And obviously, if you've got a way to get an additional vote, you know, again, with those cards that we talked about earlier, or to choose votes for your opponents, that is infinite mana. And again, you've got plenty of ways to win from there, especially since that is infinite mana and infinite clues. So yeah, you can just draw your entire library, and there are plenty of ways to win with that. Now, obviously, in a still very powerful but more limited way, there is Eldrazi Displacer, which has pay 2 and a colorless, exile a target creature, and return to the battlefield, tapped during its owner's control. You do need colorless mana for this. Treasures cannot make colorless mana, so you do need other sources to do so. But, you know, if you've got a land that might tap for a colorless, great, you can start blinking your commander and taking advantage of it. Now, I do think it is easier and more beneficial in these colors to use and abuse that ETB versus, you know, the combat damage trigger, but still, you can still get good use out of it with cards like Duelist Heritage, which let you double up on it. It says whenever one or more creatures attack, you may have target attacking creature gain double strike until end of turn, so yeah, give your flying commander double strike, and if it gets through an opponent, you get that trigger twice. And also, this is just a great politic card to be like, okay, hey, you're attacking this turn. If you attack this other player, not me, I'll give it double strike to, you know, help dish out even more damage. So, yeah, just a great card to consider. Moving on, some other cards that you should definitely be considering. Well, okay, one of them definitely for, you know, if you got the budget for it. But yeah, Erdwall Illuminator, Academy Manufacturer, and Anointed Procession. Erdwall Illuminator says, whenever you investigate for the first time each turn, investigate an additional time. So cool, you get an extra clue token. You're probably going to be getting at least 1 clue from your opponent's choosing, you know, for you to investigate. So awesome, you get an extra. But what's even better though, and this card is fantastic with this commander, is Academy Manufacturer. It says if you would create a clue, food, or treasure token, instead create one of each. So now it really doesn't matter what your opponents choose, or actually what you choose either, because you're going to be getting 5 clues and 5 treasures every single time your commander comes into play. Again, assuming that you've got 3 opponents. Because if they pick a clue, you also get a treasure, and if they pick a treasure, you also get a clue. So basically, their votes don't matter. And of course, another way to double up on these treasures and clues is with a card like Anointed Procession, which is incredibly expensive. Wizards, please reprint it. And it says if an effect would create 1 or more tokens under your control, it creates twice that many of those tokens instead. So whether you're doubling up on treasures or clues, this can be incredibly powerful. Moving on, you can also have ways to take advantage of your clues or just your artifacts in general with cards like Tamio's Journal and Time Sieve. Tamio's Journal has at the beginning of your upkeep, Investigate, and also you can tap and sacrifice 3 clues, search your library for a card, put it in your hand, then shuffle your library. Yeah, with this commander, this is an incredibly powerful, just repeatable tutor effect. This might convince your opponents not to actually give you clues and instead to give you treasures because, well, letting you just, you know, essentially tutor for the exact card you need each turn is a very powerful thing, though you can kind of just do that on your own, you know, if you just keep getting that trigger because, well, you can choose to vote for clue twice, and you also get a clue your upkeep, so there's 3. So just keep doing that over and over again. And speaking of over and over again, Time Sieve can be broken with this commander. It has tap, sacrifice 5 artifacts, take an extra turn after this one. And like I mentioned, with our commander's ETB, or, you know, combat damage trigger, if we've got 3 opponents, we are getting 5 artifacts on every single one of those triggers. Whether they're clues or treasures, it does not matter. So this especially works incredibly well if we've got something like Conjurer's Closet in play where it's like, okay, cool, I've got a repeatable way to blink my commander, and I can keep making 5 treasures or, you know, 5 clues or a combination of both or whatnot, doesn't matter. I keep sacrificing the artifacts, getting extra turn, get that trigger, get the artifacts, turn, trigger. You see where this is going. It's not hard to take an incredible amount of turns with this or just an infinite number of turns and win the game from there. And of course, some other cards to consider are ones that punish your opponents whenever you sacrifice either your clues or your treasures, with cards like Disciple of the Vault and Marionette Master. Disciple of the Vault says whenever an artifact is put in graveyard from the battlefield, you may have target opponent lose 1 life. And Marionette Master takes this a step further, and it's got Fabricate 3, so basically it can be a 4/6 when it comes into play. It says whenever an artifact you control is put in a graveyard from the battlefield, target opponent loses life equal to Marionette Master's power. So, drain an opponent for 4 life every time you sacrifice an artifact, which, obviously includes treasures or clues. Yeah, you can drain your opponents out really quick with this. But now as this episode is coming to a close, it's time for me to give you my final thoughts on Tivit, and my apologies if I mispronouncing that, whatever it is, Seller of Secrets. And also, again, my apologies for forgetting to put Flying and Ward 3 on this, because, yeah, it also has that. Overall, though, this is a very spicy commander, and again, one that I never thought that we'd see. I did not think we'd ever see Council's Dilemma on a commander or a commander that cares about voting, and yeah, you can do some very powerful things with this, and some really exciting things. And, if you want to take this into a politic direction, you definitely can, or if you want to take it into a use and abuse that ETB or combat damage trigger, you can too. But of course, we've already seen a lot of other spicy cards, even just today again, so if you haven't seen those episodes from today or yesterday, make sure you check them out at some point. And of course, we've got even more exciting spoilers coming out, so make sure you're staying tuned for more quick takes in the future. And with that, the show has come to a close, so it's my turn to hear from you, so make sure you comment below and let me know what your thoughts on this episode are, and as always, thanks again and have a good one.